Let's do this.
Spirited conversation here this morning, everybody. How we doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
I'm doing great. We got plenty of coffee this morning.
Yeah, I've got my cold brew in here.
I thought you were drinking water. Being a quitter.
Got a cold brew in there. I'll be drinking water afterwards to water it down. So, yeah, I'm on prednisone right now because I poison ivy bug bite something from the.
That was not poison ivy. That couldn't. Was it?
It has to be because it started spreading.
Oh.
So
Okay.
went into the urgent care first, and they're like, "Oh, look at that in the middle of that dot. That's a bug bite." I think it's just where it hit, scabbed up a little bit. But yeah, no, I don't know. We had that great trip. With Trip, my son got to go caving in Devil's Icebox, and which is just phenomenal. It's pretty cool. And what's neat as we're talking about animals, pets, and all that kind of stuff with the Vetted Podcast is that in Devil's Icebox there is a creature called the pink planarium, an animal it's actually a little carnivore. It's like half an inch, and it is endemic to that cave. So the only place in the world where this animal is known to exist is right here in Columbia, Missouri, in the Devil's Icebox. And so Ben Nudge, who is my friend and superintendent of Rockbridge State Parks, has graciously invited me out 2 years in a row now to go on that trip because it is invitation only, because there's also brown bats and gray bats that alternate hibernation in there. And so they don't want to disturb that, plus the white nose and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, really a beautiful trip. We went 2 miles back in the cave, spent 6 hours in there that day.
That's awesome.
It's a canoe trip. You got to canoe half mile in, then you ported your boat, pull it up on the side of the bank in the cave.
In the cave?
Yeah, which is really cool. And then you go caving. So, yep. So, anyways, the next day woke up with, I don't know. Yeah, I'm in nature.
You're in
Nature's
nature.
cool. It's going to happen.
So that creature is like a fish. It's a species of darter.
Is that what it is? Species
like
of darter.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so they do a count in there. So they give you 5 minutes. They need 5 volunteers. And so my trip went down. A couple other people went down, and they're just turning rocks over, looking for it, and didn't find one. But they're in there. They do counts. It's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. What's interesting is that in the cave, too, they were looking at, of course, the guano, the bat droppings, and hasn't rained in a while, and there's mold coming up on bat drop. There's like different things going on than normal. We didn't see any nesting bats. We saw, of course, some flying around, but it's just last year when we went with Spencer, you could look up where they were, the bat droppings were, and you'd see all these bats up in there, but not this time. So it's an amazing environment. I mean, you're literally, you don't need eyes down there, obviously, if you live down there. And so, everything down there is besides the bat, which the bat can't see very well anyways, because it's what it does.
Other means to know.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Apparently, the bat memorizes the cave pattern. Like, they don't necessarily use ultrasound in the cave. They know the way in and out. It's impressive. It was a fun trip. So, yeah, now that, I feel jazzed up, energized today. Not that I'm normally not jazzed up, energized, but you throw some prednisone.
Yeah, that's good.
On top of the energy and coffee. So we're feeling really good to get the Vetted Podcast together. And I think what I'm getting into here is we're talking about finishing strong. Call it finishing happy, whatever someone wants to call it, because some people I don't want to say finish strong, I want to say finish happy, whatever that may be. But you got to be energized if we're talking about finishing strong, right? And we're coming into the fourth quarter here. So today on the Vetted Podcast, we're going to get into that. And so I'm Steve Hermann.
I'm Kale Flaspohler.
I'm Lindo Zwane.
Hey, he got in there this time.
Yeah, he was expecting it.
I'm alive today.
You're alive today? Good. Good. Glad. Are you hot?
No, but I'm strong.
But this guy's wearing a vest over here.
And complaining that the room's hot.
Yeah, like a feather down vest, and he's saying it's hot. But anyways, put yourself on mute so you can't respond.
Hit the button.
Just hit the button. Well, hey, this is episode 16 or 17, excuse me. Finishing the year strong, episode 17. And hey, jump into some news. And what's interesting is that in Apple News, I had a story come up from the Scientific American called The Empathy Incentive. Taking someone else's vantage point can be mentally taxing. Upholding empathy as a social norm motivates people to make the effort, by Elizabeth Swoboda in the Scientific American. And what it got into is that being empathetic can have a mentally taxing on the mind. And I am no psychologist. I'm no mental health expert. I look into those things because we have mental health, crisis in the country, and also mental health crisis, of course, in the veterinary field. And as our team here, Pro Partners team, is looking to be as self-aware as possible, understand each other, work well together, so we can work really well for our clients, it's obviously piqued my interest. And so reading through that, and we put the link up on our website to this. I think people should take a look at it. But what got me is that I started clicking on the links of where the resources came from for the research, and it took me to the National Institute of Health. And there's an article in there, and in that article, as I'm reading it, it goes, understanding the neurophysiological differences between empathy and compassion is critical to alleviating the emotional distress frequently experienced by veterinarians. And I hit that by veterinarians, and I was like, holy crap. And Lauren's like, what, everything okay? I said, yeah, I just was reading an article that was sourced. One of the sources was an article by a veterinarian. And so, it said that, so emotional distress frequently experienced by veterinarians. And so it's had to do the difference between empathy and compassion. And so it led me down to that, where it says, is this empathy something that can fatigue you? Because the way I understood in the article is that, if you look at the mind and the chemical release that, can happen, good things, release not oxytocin. I'm having a brain fart here. Dopamine, yeah, thank you. That's a drug. I had a complete brain fart. Dopamine, thank you,
We
Kale.
can cut that.
No, we'll leave that in there. It's all right to have a Freudian slip there. So dopamine and the empathy taxes that area. Having that taking on that, Kale, if I'm having empathy for you and you're injured, I'm going to take that. Or in the veterinary space where they say, as a euthanasia, those go on a lot. There's a lot of empathy fatigue through the euthanasia. So the question is can you flip that empathy to compassion and say, I understand what you're going through. I want to be here for you to help you through that. But view that more as helpful. View that more as giving of that to help that person through that moment versus taking that on. So I don't know, going through this and correlating on that with the veterinary space, and because they say compassion fatigue, and the research out here says no. And again, I'm not the researcher. I'm not a doctor. I could be wrong on this, but as we talked about, the Vetted podcast is about perspectives and thinking about things a different way, being open to that a different way. And I was like, man, I don't know, this really sinks with me because we use the words wrong, definitely, for sure. Look at it wrong because we don't understand the root of it. And boy, that made a lot of sense. That there's nothing wrong with compassion. Compassion's good, and the research says it right here that we'll post up there on this article. And then tying in the euthanasia with it for the empathetic response is taxing.
I like what you said, and maybe you can offer some more clarity on this about how when they were doing this study, they actually took two people and poked.
Yeah, the couples.
Yeah, the couples.
So so the functional MRIs they can do now, which looking at the brain, and so they hooked up couples, married couples, and would apply a pinprick or something to the one spouse's hand, and the other spouse in their cortex would light up the same pain response spot as their spouse. So the one not getting hurt is still having the same mental taxing response because injury is taxing to the brain, right? Because it's not a dopamine release when you get injured. If it is,
Yeah.
But yeah, looking at that, that's showing the same thing, that when you get into that response area, I'm sure if they hooked up a veterinary's mind to the functional MRI and the client, and they're having the empathetic response, they could probably see the same lighting up versus, right. And you're not going to have compassion for your spouse getting probably hurt. You might be wrong on that. That might be a bad thing, but it's a great correlation to look at how that is working. That there is scientific, studies behind it now on that side. And actually, in the article, it talked about one of the things talking about was looking at No, I think this is a different article. It was talking about pregnancy changes the mind. That was a completely different article. Different functional MRI scanner.
Well, I think it's also, it can be applied to multiple things in the clinic, like someone's inability to pay for a service that dog might really need.
Yes.
Yes. And I think any of us would try to make that our problem.
Right.
Right. And we would try to, and cause us more pain, personalize that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We don't necessarily have to do that. And we can say, hey, I sympathize with you. I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Here's the options that I can help you with.
Yes.
And that's it.
How can you have a compassionate response?
How can you have a compassionate response?
Yes.
But not also take on that person's, like, this is my fault. Like, I can't help them.
Well, it's interesting. Dr. Jim Schisler said, I can't bleed for that person. And that's what you're doing with the empathetic response. You're in a way, you're bleeding without seeing the blood. You're giving of something that taxes you and is going to make you less effective for the next person. So how do we turn that compassionate response? How do we have ways to help that person? And probably that's part of the problem is like the veterinarian doesn't know what to do. So how do we put things in place, say, here's options to go see to help with that? Because when you try to solve societal problems inside your veterinary practice, that's not for you to do. Mm-hmm. That's not the space. You're there to give best medicine. That's what you're there to do. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, someone else's economic situation isn't your responsibility.
It's not. So I know it's what, thinking about today is we'll reflect on profitability. The only way you can be helpful to another person in that situation is if you're profitable. Mm-hmm. If you're not profitable, you have no room, no latitude to help that person that needs that help. So that'll tie right in. So yeah, we'll get these links out there again. I think there's some words that have gone out the wrong way, saying compassion fatigue has been spread around the industry, and I think they need to relook at that. They really do. It's empathetic fatigue, because as this article says right here from 2018 in NIH, compassion does not fatigue. Great article. So thanks for letting me go down that rabbit hole on that. Other thing is too, a little fun announcement here. So met Dr. Nacho from Spain down in AVMA in Austin this year, and he's a veterinarian, but he's also a business consultant, like things we do here, but he does it in Latin America, Spanish-speaking countries, things like that, Mexico, and so what's cool talking about his perspectives too, is looking at things like client counts. He says, United States is like you need at least 2,000 a year. In Spain, we're like 500. In Mexico, looking at the cost of medicine, certain things, cost like $10 compared to $100 in the United States. But certain things cost the same as the United States. So looking at perspectives on how different countries work, what they do. But he's been a great guy to talk to, talking about different perspectives, how to look at business a different way. But exciting one announced today is that I just saw on LinkedIn, he said he and Dr. Peter Weinstein, which I think a lot of people should know his name, he's co-author of the E-Myth Veterinarian, speaker around the country. He's on Fetch's board, DVM 360, and really a proponent of private practice, just like Dr. Nacho is. The two of them have a book that came out today at the CVDL, which I believe is a Latin conference. But it says, "What happens to my veterinary center?" And they have 20 different scenarios of veterinary centers and their problems and solutions that Peter and I can provide with our years of experience. So I look forward to getting this book. Brand new, just came out. Let's put that link out there. Dr. Nacho's a really good guy, and we talk once a month, try to stay in touch, see what's going on. So congratulations to him and Dr. Weinstein for this new book coming out. Can't wait to see that, and we'll get that link out there on that because they're about private practice too. So that's exciting to see. Exciting to see friends putting books out. It's always good to get different perspectives. Any other news you had out there? Those are the things that caught me, and I thought were applicable to what we're talking about today and in the news.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. So as we look at, we're sitting here recording this on September 24th. This is going to come out next week, first Wednesday of October, as y'all are listening to this, and that's fourth quarter. And as we look at the fourth quarter, and it is football season, and we're Chiefs fans around here. Lindo, you're a football of the foot fan, as you were a collegiate football player called soccer in the United States. I think originally called soccer, but you all changed it to football and stole our American name. So is that not true at all? He's not even going to comment on this. Jeez,
told him to mute himself.
I can't even get him to talk.
Yeah, he told me to mute myself, so I'm not gonna say anything.
I can hear you. So no, but it was. I know we're Chiefs. Kale and I are Chiefs fans, and the Chiefs seem to win it in the fourth quarter every time. They like to keep us up watching late, but really at the end of the day, the year is won in the fourth quarter. I mean, because if you don't sit there and go, let's reflect on the year, let's take a look at it and say, as we look at the cornerstones of a successful practice, how's my culture, how are my operations, am I been unique, in what I'm doing comparatively, and how's the client experience been? And we've talked about culture, we've talked about client experience, we've talked about marketing, your unique values differentiators, and as we get into this time of year, in October at Pro Partners or Deviant Business Solutions, we're going to take a look at the operation, the financial side. We're going to dig into the profit and loss, the balance sheet, the detailed report of the profit and loss, and really see what's been going on inside the numbers. And because a couple things. One, we've got to see, is everything in the right category? Are we overspending somewhere? What do we need to do to adjust towards the end of the year? And also into 2025, right? Because we're going to be thinking beyond the end of the year, but also taxes. You got to start thinking about that now. Mm-hmm. So, Kale, as we dive into that, reflecting on our operations, on those financial statements, what are we going to do?
So, the first thing that I look at when I'm this time of year, really, when you start looking at this time of year, making sure everything needs to be in its right place. The thing that gets forgotten and hidden a lot of times in someone's financial system is the accounts payable or the accounts receivable aging summary. And those are two really easy reports to pull inside of QuickBooks.
Now, and we say get hidden because they land on the balance sheet, not the profit and loss.
Well, no, they can be affecting the profit and loss, and the balance sheet, both.
Okay.
But you wouldn't be able to easily identify those if they're hanging out there. So what those show you really is who do I owe and who owes me. And a lot of times what I see is I'll get into these systems and those are not even real. So it's like something didn't get matched right. Something didn't get, maybe. And so maybe we're double counting expenses because I entered this as a bill, but then I also just entered this as an expense because I didn't realize the bill was in there. And so, you can have a lot of money hanging out in accounts payable depending on how you're using your financial system. And really it comes down to, are you hand entering bills or are you using the online bank feed? And really, those if you're using the online bank feed, you usually don't have an issue. However, if you're hand entering bills, you're hand entering checks, you have to be using the system in a very specific way to make sure nothing's hanging out there. And so those two reports will tell you what's hanging out there that is I need to either delete, get rid of, look into, or it's right. And so just that those are two reports that I feel like no one ever pulls or knows what I'm talking about. But those are two reports that can tell you a lot about how good your financial system is, and because everything that's living on there is affecting your financial statement.
And that's also you can turn on a cash flow statement, right? So inside your cash flow statement, you're going to see what's actually going out the door. Like what dollars do I have? Excuse me, my bank account could say I've got $100,000 in it, but if you look at those reports, maybe that's not actually money you have because you've got money due or money coming in too. Is that what's going to help you on?
Well, I don't know that that's specifically going to help you on the cash flow statement. I like to look at it just from what is affecting our profit and loss statement currently. Okay. So
you're trying to see actually, what we're not looking at cash flow. We're looking at profit and loss from did we make money or not?
Yeah. Are these bills real or are they not?
Okay.
And usually, it kind of depends on how you're doing it. But when you pull that, you should see nothing in the 91 and over category.
Okay.
Unless there really is something that's 91 days overdue.
Got it.
That's what I'm looking for.
91 days overdue coming to you or going out?
Both.
And if it's that way, you might look at, is it real or not real?
Is it real or not real, one? And if it is real, we have to deal with it.
Okay.
Because if someone has owed us for 91 days, we probably need to look at that.
Yeah.
And if we owe someone over 91 days, we need to look at that. And so, if you pull it and there's nothing hanging out there for a long time or there's nothing that looks weird, then you're good. But those are two reports that no one pulls that are really valuable.
I'm on a not-for-profit board, which, anyways,
I love.
Yeah, I love. Had the meeting on Sunday, and they're same thing. They got out the detail report looking at when someone relinquishes their membership, they're supposed to get their membership deposit back, and there's all the way back to 2019 people that have not cashed those checks. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're like, can we call those people? And they're like, what do you call it? 5 years ago?
Yeah.
You know?
Let it go.
Let it go.
The the other thing where
91
I see
days.
really,
it was 91 days. I got a chance.
Yeah. If it's 91 days, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, I forgot about that.
I got a
5
chance.
years, it's like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Most likely the company's going to let you know before you get to 91 days that you owe them.
And you should, if it's real, you should know. But what I'm saying is a lot of times it's not real. It's just the way that the accounting system's been done that it's hanging out there. And I had another.
Well, yeah, if you look at the accounts payable and accounts receivable, looking at what's going to go on your taxes at the end of the day.
And if your cash may not be.
And your cash may not. Right.
If you're a cash basis taxpayer,
right.
It may not be a big deal.
Most people are.
Most people are.
Some
people are not. And so that plays into effect of whether it even really matters or not. But the thing that can also really affect this is for anybody, if you're listening and you allow your practice management system to integrate with your QuickBooks Online or your QuickBooks Desktop, either one, that, if it's not being taken care of properly, can absolutely destroy accounts payable, accounts receivable, and therefore income and cost. Like, so many things it can affect if it's not being taken care of perfectly.
Yeah.
So if you're going to integrate with a PIM system, you need to be very, very careful in how you interact with your financial system.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about, I'll dive into accounts receivable. Large animal out of the equation, because generally that's the ones who have a lot of accounts receivable. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go down that route, but small animal should small animal have accounts receivable?
I personally don't believe so. Yeah. We have a client that has a fund that people can donate to, clients can donate to, and it's at the doctor's discretion. Like, hey, I'm going to take care of this bill for you. So if somebody comes in and is like, hey, I don't have the money to pay you, can I get you later? You can make a choice at that point to say, hey, I'm going to take care of that out of this fund.
Right.
Or we need to take payment at the end of at time of service.
Yeah.
Those are the two ways that I would deal with AR in a small animal setting.
Yeah.
You're going to have your people that you may want to take care of, but take care of that really outside of the, don't let somebody owe you for a long time.
Right. Well, and I tell you what a good method to look at this as is that back in the 80s and 90s, this is where it really comes from, is 80s and 90s. And really the 80s, well, charge accounts were a big deal because credit cards weren't as prevalent. But charge accounts were a big deal, and because the smaller community, everybody knew everybody, and it was just different. We're a lot more transient now, and so really if you look at your current AR, I wouldn't recommend just like knocking it all out. I would look at your clients that have been they've been on AR for a while and they're paying. Let them do that, but don't offer AR. Don't offer the ability to charge in your practice to someone else, especially with all things that are out there. Care credit, people have credit cards, and then what you said was something we could dive into. Is a pretty cool thing to do is to start out a donation fund into the practice that.
It's not a discount.
Would you like to give an extra $5 or whatever it is today to go towards helping those that can't afford veterinary health care? And let that run that way. Let that practice handle that. And that's a great way to handle, we talked about earlier, the compassion or empathetic, get rid of the empathetic fatigue. You can be compassionate because I have a fund that we can help you with on this situation to help you get that care you need for that animal.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty damn cool. Like it.
Yeah. So, just going through the list of things that I check. At the end of of Q3 here, you can pull your balance sheet by month, and your balance sheet will total your bank accounts at the top.
Right.
And so, I think it's important to look at how's our bank balance been, because that really, a lot of people that first come to us like, I've got money in the bank, I'm good. Like that's the metric that people look at, which is fine. If you're going to use that metric, let's look at it over time and like actually see like, are we trending upwards? Are we trending downwards? What actually is going on in that bank balance? Because that looks at it at a steady period, so it kind of shows you what's going on. And so I'll look at that and see, if we're trending downwards, we need to fix something. And so, if we're trending upwards, great.
Or if you're trending down, did you buy a piece of equipment? Right, there could be some things.
There could be some things,
right?
Yeah. But can you explain it to yourself?
Can you explain it? Yeah. If you can't come to, we bought an X-ray and we paid for it out of cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deal.
Yeah.
Great. So, but if it's just trending downwards, that's something we definitely need to look at, and that there could be a million and one things that could be, but it's a way to identify whether you have a problem or not.
Yeah, definitely is.
So, you mentioned a good one, the detailed profit and loss.
Well, thank you.
I think that no one pulls it because it's way daunting. It's it's very lengthy.
It is.
But it's not as bad as you think it is. Once you get into it, it's not that terrible.
No.
And so really all that profit and loss detail. Now these are all the names of reports in QuickBooks. So if you're using QuickBooks, this is what you're going to see.
Yes.
But you can pull your detailed profit and loss for the year, and what it shows you is the category, and then every transaction that's been categorized in that category for the whole year. And so it's very easy to go through and identify that shouldn't be there. That doesn't make sense. What's going on in that? And so it's something worth doing. It might take you a couple hours to look through it, but it's totally worth doing just to see what's going on out there. Along with that, you might notice, and we do it too, but you might notice that you have subscriptions that you've been paying for that you don't need.
Right.
Especially if you got a lot of employees with a lot of credit cards.
Yeah.
With company cards.
Yes.
What if people do we have the same subscription that we're paying for twice?
Yeah.
On different cards that we don't know about? Like, just kind of a time to take an inventory of what exactly are we paying for? And so, that's another valuable thing that you could do in this situation.
And that detail report, when you look at it, what's pretty easy to look at is for the most part, like, especially in cost of goods sold, it's like MWI, MWI, BI, BI, Zoetis, Zoetis, IDEX, IDEX, right? It's like the same repeating names. And then you'll spot something there. And we've had that where, here's this accounting gap of a lot of accountants' misunderstanding of the veterinary industry. They'll put labor in cost of goods sold. We've seen that. And you're like, why is your cost of goods sold so high?
It's a manufacturing style.
It's a manufacturing. Yeah, we're not manufacturing here. We're service industry, and cost of goods sold are not. It's not that. It's not labor. So you can find something like that, and they're gonna be like, oh, that's why your cost of goods sold's high, because that's why your labor looks low and your cost of goods sold looks high, because it's not in the right spot. So easy to point things out like that and find anomalies in there. That why is that there? So better books, you make better decisions.
Yeah, all of this could be done in an afternoon. If you and even if you want to do it on a weekend, whatever you want to do, if it's your business. But it is worth the afternoon to sit down and think through this.
It is.
It is worth it because, at the end of the day, we're kind of at a point where you can make decisions right now that will go into place and either affect or not affect 2025.
Yeah.
And so, if the last 12 months have produced what you want, great. Keep moving. But if you look at the last 12 months and you're like, I'm really not where I wanted to be this year, isn't turning out the way I wanted it to turn out, you have the time to change it and not carry that into 2025.
That's right. Get rid of that practice that's going, that charge that's going on it's gonna find you money. You sit down for an afternoon, you go, all right, if I'm a veterinarian, I'm supposed to generate revenue of $500 an hour, let's say. So if you sit down for 4 hours, that's $2,000 of your time. You're going to find at least $2,000 in those numbers that you can save. You might find $10,000, $20,000. In fact, one client, we were wondering why their IDEX, seems so high compared to their revenue, comparatively to the industry benchmarks. And come to find out, we still don't know how this happened. I do know what happened. They didn't update their the sales tax to IDEX. And IDEX started putting the sales tax on to their invoice. And so they didn't get caught for a year. And so they've been paying sales tax to IDEX plus sales tax on stuff the client's been paying. So the state's been receiving double sales tax. But that did get found. And I think that so far it's like $13,000 or $17,000 that IDEX is crediting them back to the practice. And you might find something like that. And if you just take a look at if you're wondering on some certain things while you're in there, grab an invoice out on that. Are you paying sales tax on something that you collect sales tax on? Now, you're not going to collect sales tax on things used in surgery like cotton swabs or various other things potentially, or just paper towels in and around the practice. Certain things that you pay sales tax on, but make sure as you think about this, make sure that you talk. That's probably one of the easier things to do is just talk to each one of your vendors and say, do you have my sales tax exempt form? Is that on file? Is that up to date? And if it's not, then you might have money sitting out there. That's a simple little thing to think about as you reflect on the year, and that can happen. What is your process for ensuring you're not paying sales tax to the vendor that you actually collect sales tax on inside your practice. So that was $13,000.
A lot of money.
And there's going to be more money to be found on that too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is going to be more than that.
Yeah.
Just on that one thing. So I think that pulling that AP, AR, the detailed profit and loss is really good.
Yeah. And it's not like you have to have an accounting degree to do this. You're looking for transactions like, why did I spend money on that?
You should know what you're spending money on.
You should know what you're spending money on. And what I see is the bigger the practice, the more amplified that can get. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, we have several cards for people in our company, right? And so
right.
If you have 6, 7, 8 credit cards, in your clinic, the practice manager, all the doctors have one. They're going on farm calls. It's important to at least once a year figure out what the hell are we spending money on,
right?
Because the bigger you are, the more amplified that is, and the quicker it adds up.
Yeah.
And so if you find $10,000, that's worth, you could pay for the Christmas party.
Yeah.
And bonus whatever you want to do with it. But there's a lot of money that can be found in those things.
Absolutely. We recommend, that while we're talking about now, because now is like the last time to do it this year.
Yeah.
We think you should do it quarterly for sure. Stay ahead of it. But now is, you're going to the fourth quarter. You have to do it now. You've got to jump in and do it. So take a look at that. So as we're looking through that, the detailed profit and loss report, that literally tells you everything was paid. Transaction, checks, all the stuff inside the credit cards, everything. Depending on how you have that linked up in QuickBooks. Hopefully you're using QuickBooks Online. If you're not using QuickBooks Online, they're going to put you on it. You might have an accountant that says you shouldn't be on there. It makes no sense.
It's real easy to convert.
You might want to think about a new accountant if they're stuck on QuickBooks Desktop.
I can help you get on QuickBooks Online in under 15 minutes.
Let us know.
And convert all the data from desktop to online. Yep. You just start fresh one day.
Yeah, absolutely. So QuickBooks Online is a place to be. You can integrates with everything account-wise, so the stuff flows right into it. It makes your life a lot easier. It's
way better.
It does make it way better. So what else are we looking at here?
You wanted to talk about taxes a little bit?
Yeah. So taxes. We are not we're not CPAs here at Pro Partners. DVM Office has we have a CPA we use that a couple of different firms we trust based on what they want to do. So we do have some great advice and people to work with. So if anyone ever has any accounting questions, we can get someone to help them out. That's a CPA or an enrolled agent, or like Dr. Mary Dorn, a professor over at Columbia College, just a block away. She's one of our trusted accountants and does a great job. But what you want to be able to do is go to your accountant knowing what you've done profit-wise. And so because you want to be able to say, what opportunities do I have to minimize my taxes? Because if you're making money, you're going to pay taxes. Not a bad thing. People complain about paying taxes, but I always remind them, I go, it means you made money. We talked about before, though, is how are you spending your money? Mm-hmm. Just because you may not have a bunch in your bank account because you might not be spending it in the right way. So they're not tax deductions. And you look at your balance sheet, the question is it withdrawals to your own personal account, paying bank loans? What do we have out here? Because people also, principal on your bank notes, that's taxable. And so there's a lot of things you need to look at, but getting into it now, understanding what your tax implications for April 15th is really important because that's 6 months away, and you can get ahead of that. A couple things you can do. One is go, is there anything I need to buy for my practice? Upgrade, equipment, some inventory I could buy maybe. Things that will add profit. Don't just buy something for a tax deduction because that's what some accountants recommend. Go buy a new truck. Go buy a new x-ray machine. Do you need that? Or do you need that just for a tax deduction? If it's just for a tax deduction, you don't need it. If it'll add profit to your practice,
do it.
Do that. So when you look at taxes, you really need to look at now because everything too, if you found that piece of equipment that is going to make a difference in your practice and add profit, add better medicine, which that's what should add profits is best medicine. You need to be looking at buying it now. Because if you get into November or December, it gets really tough to be able to have that in place in your practice, invoiced, everything you need to do to be able to apply that to this year's 2024 taxes that'll be paid on April 15th. So I think that's real important to look at where you have profit and loss now to be able to account for that now because we're being proactive. You get into November and December, you're running out of time. Mm-hmm. And plus accountants, either they're getting busy or it's holidays. You got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas. So people go, I got 6 weeks left at the end of the year. You don't. you got like 3 weeks left because we got Thanksgiving. Then we got 3 weeks before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've got 3 weeks actually. So it's even this time crunch. Can you even see an accountant? Can you get your books in order? So that's what we're saying to do right now is reflect on this year, reflect on your operations, get your books in order, profit and loss detail report, take a look at that. Are things in the right categories? Are there things we can save on because we're spending money in the wrong areas? On the taxes part of it, what are we going to be at? Are we going to show $100,000 in net profit, $200,000? What is that going to look like? And I tell you what, something people can do for themselves is that there's a app called Tax Mode. That you have it on your phone? Yeah, you got it on your phone. We use it around here. People are like, what are my tax implications? It's a free app called Tax Mode. You can put in your estimated income into that, and it'll give you probably pretty close to what you're going to pay. You don't need an accountant for that. You might be questioning on what you put in a few different places, but it's pretty straightforward to use, and that way you can go, oh, crap, I need to come up with $30,000 in taxes by April 15th. So I better start finding out how I'm going to have $30,000 coming April 15th because the IRS wants their money.
Yeah.
You better pay. There's one thing you better do is
pay the IRS.
Pay the IRS because it's the old joke of the IRS is that the FBI may not be able to find you, but the IRS can when you don't pay your taxes.
So, can I close it?
Yes, absolutely.
So the last thing that I want to talk about that is probably the hardest because it's the hardest to do and it's the hardest to deal with and it's the hardest emotionally is to think about, are there any team adjustments that we need to make? Is there anyone on this team that that probably shouldn't be here? And
meaning talk to you about that, Kale.
I figured. And I likewise.
You need to be here.
Evidently. That's what you say. So, yeah, you're lucky to have me.
Linda's not even. Are you awake over there?
He's not even
I
laughing.
mean, we're sitting talking about people and
I'm trying to be serious here, Steven.
Okay. My bad.
No, so but seriously,
do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah. If there's somebody on your team that you've been sitting for a while thinking, hey, they just don't fit, they don't belong. There's they need to be somewhere else. They would have better opportunity somewhere else, or they're no longer, at the end of the day, a profitable engagement with us. It's probably time right now to figure out what is that plan. Can I get that person to be the employee that the company needs them to be, or do they need to find another opportunity? And so you have time now, again, not to carry that into 2025. And so it's a good reflection point to sit here and say, who is here that maybe isn't adding to the culture, isn't adding to the team environment, is a drag on some of those things. And anyway, that's just it's a point in time to think about those things. As tough or as painful as they might be, it's we're running business here.
It is tough, but just like we talked about, you can't bleed for that client that can't afford that operation or that surgery. You can't also let someone bleed your practice, because if you're a staff of 20 and you have one or two people that are bleeding the practice, you got 18 people you have to think about. You're stuck on these two, and like you said, there's probably somewhere else they need to be. They don't fit the culture, and so let's help them find an opportunity where they will thrive, because they're not thriving here.
Right.
And this is what this is all about. This is about a fresh perspective to transform your business. This is what this is about. So you need to take a look at your taxes, your profit and loss, those things, have a perspective on your business and understand where it's at. Now, great closing point. I love that. And I love that we're able to get in today and talk about some interesting news things about compassion versus empathy, which one really fatigues you. Congratulations to Dr. Nacho and Dr. Weinstein for a great book coming out. I can't wait to read it. And do we have a new? We have a
new member of the Whitehead family.
When was
Just
that?
now.
Just now?
Yeah, literally got it.
Congratulations to Melissa and Zach Whitehead. Zach, one of our good friends, Dr. Zach Whitehead, Ellisville Veterinary Hospital, and building a new hospital. We're waiting on the groundbreaking, right in the middle of having a baby. Got a groundbreaking to come up here soon.
Just welcome a new member of the family, so congratulations to them.
Do we have a name?
Asher.
Boy.
Yes.
That was a surprise, wasn't it?
I don't actually remember.
I think it was a surprise.
I don't remember.
That's congratulations. I got a boy and girl. That's exciting. Wonderful. That's big news. Cool. Well, that's a great way to end.
Yeah.
new member of the Pro Partners community.
There you go.
Wonderful. Kale, always pleasure to be on here with you.
Always a pleasure.
I enjoy it, man. I really do. I'm fired up. Steroids are working good.
They're doing good.
That's why it is.
All right.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace and blessings.